The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning here at 5 a.m. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher on this Thursday morning.
This morning, we are learning more about the man who police say was shot and killed by a neighbor while allegedly trying to force his way into an apartment in southwest Bakersfield. Kyle Lundy was a beloved youth soccer coach and a former CSUB soccer player. Last night, friends and family gathered outside Lundy's apartment on Half Moon Drive to mourn his loss during a candlelight vigil. They believe Lundy may have been suffering an epileptic episode when he was shot. 17's Christian Galeno has more.
39-year-old Kyle Lundy, seen here coaching youth soccer players of the Albion youth soccer team, was beloved by his players and their families. News of his death came as a shock to Cynthia Gutierrez, who managed the team with Lundy, and to Jennifer Cruz, whose child plays for the team.
I had to tell all my parents, all my kids, players. It's been really hard, really hard.
I think it's just hard with the kids and their questions, just because we're very sensitive to their age. All they know is, Coach had an accident, he was badly injured, and, he passed away.
Gutierrez and Cruz say Lundy was epileptic, and they believe he could have been seizuring or suffering an episode where Lundy was disoriented. This
is something that she has witnessed. He's had this all his life. So he was a really good guy. He was very attentive to the boys. 17
News spoke with the woman who lives in that apartment with her 6-year-old son, but did not want to talk on camera. She says she called BPD twice that morning to intervene while a ruckus Lundy was attempting to get into her apartment, but officers showed up too late. According to officers with Bakersfield Police, Lundy was shot and killed by a neighbor after he attempted to force his way into that apartment early Monday morning. CSUB has confirmed that Lundy played for the Runners in the 2002 and 2003 seasons. No arrests have been made. BPD continues to investigate. They say at the conclusion of the investigation, the details will be forwarded to the DA's office for review.
For 17 News, I'm Christian Galeno.
Drinking and driving continues to plague our community. It's an issue we call Kern's sober reality. And this morning, 4 people, including a toddler, are recovering after a suspected drunk driver crashed into their home in the middle of the night. It happened around 12:30 yesterday morning. The Highway Patrol says a Bakersfield woman crashed into the home at Old River Road and Taft Highway, and her car burst into flames. 25-year-old Prince Deep Jashan, his wife, his father, and his 22-month-old son were inside the home when the impact caused the ceiling to cave in on top of them. According to his aunt, the toddler, Rohandeep Joshan, suffered a fractured skull, broken arm, and other internal injuries. Prince Deep also suffered a fractured hip. He says his 61-year-old father got everyone out of the home but had to be treated for smoke inhalation.
It shouldn't be like this. People shouldn't have to face what I'm facing. I'm here in the hospital with a 22-month-old baby who's he's broken. He's broken. Nobody should ever have to see a child, whether it's their child or someone else's child, go through this.
The family says this isn't the first time a vehicle has crashed into their home. They want the city to install a traffic light on Taft Highway and Old River Road to prevent another incident like this. The driver, 26-year-old Madison Williams, was booked into jail on felony DUI charges, and she's due in court tomorrow.
Railroad unions and companies have reached a tentative deal to avoid a strike, the Biden administration announced earlier this morning. In a statement, President Biden said that the deal would guarantee better pay, improved working conditions, and peace of mind around health care costs. The president also called the agreement an important win for our economy and the American people. According to an official from the Department of Labor, the deal balances the needs of workers, businesses, and our nation's economy. Negotiators had until Friday morning to reach a deal to avoid a major impact to the economy. The 2 railroad unions were fighting for more quality of life provisions to be put into the new contract, covering attendance policies and vacation and sick days. Commuters are relieved to hear this news.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. We really need them on the track in order for us to keep going. Because if they had shut down, the economic, impact from it would have been horrendous. So I'm glad they got to reach a settlement.
The full details of the tentative agreement have not been released.
When negotiations were at an impasse, Amtrak San Joaquin's announced it would suspend several of its trains today, including some out of Bakersfield. With the tentative deal now being reached, there's no word yet on whether the suspension stands. Until then, locally, trains 702, 703, 714, 717, 718, and 719 were not supposed to run today. And the associated thruway bus service was also suspended. We'll keep you updated as we learn more.
Amtrak released a statement moments ago saying that the company is working to quickly restore canceled trains and then reaching out to impacted customers to accommodate on first available departures. We will update you as soon as we learn if our local trains that were originally supposed to be canceled, if their schedules will resume on time.
5:19 now. Senate Republicans have introduced a new bill to combat the recent spike in violent crime, while Democrats are trying to push their plan through Congress before Election Day. Instead of waiting on the legislative process, Republicans are urging President Biden to act now. They blame Democrats for record high levels of violent crime in every major city.
This defund the police, disrespect the police, be compassionate to criminals has not served this nation well.
We have some elected officials who think cops are now a bigger problem than criminals.
New York Congressman Hakeem Jeffrey says Democrats are also working to boost police funding, but many want more oversight and accountability to go along with that, which could push consideration of their plan past Election Day.
There are ongoing conversations in terms of how do we continue to strengthen the relationship between the police and the community.
Republicans are pointing specifically to a Trump-era program that sent federal officers to serve in violent crime hotspots across the country to help solve the problem.
And as crime is plaguing the nation, the long-running reality show Cops is coming back to Kern County. The Kern County Sheriff's Office has approved a new partnership with the TV series after working with it almost a decade ago. 17's Marco Torres looks at the public's reaction to the deal, as well as controversy linked with the show.
Yeah, I smoke that.
Cops, the now Fox-owned show, is back in Kern County.
It's a different world than it was, say, 10 years ago. And I think it's important that the community members see what deputies deal with on the street.
The show has a controversial history. It's known for covering police activity in local communities across the nation. But according to a 2020 study from The Guardian, there's about 4 times more violent crimes in Cops than in reality, 3 times more drug arrests, and 10 times more arrests for sex work. Concern already pouring in through our Facebook page about this partnership just 2 years after the wrongful death of George Floyd and the international BLM movement, both of which led to the show's ratings tanking and ended with it being dropped from Paramount. Will that bring any money to our county? Yay, because our crazy town will be on TV, but not yay, because we have too much crime here. To answer the first question, no money is being made. The sheriff's office is doing this for free.
It might inspire someone to want to be a police officer, and that's what we're hoping. Someone from Los Angeles or any place else in the state of California, that's what it's free advertisement for us.
Other Kern residents say this partnership doesn't bother them.
I don't pay any attention to all that. I mean, somebody's going to complain about something all the time, so.
Marco Torres, 17 News.
Well, as flames continue to rage in Placer and El Dorado counties, the effort to contain the mosquito fire is growing more intense. At last check, the blaze has grown to more than 63,000 acres. Containment at 20%. That is down from 25% containment reported earlier this week. More than 5 dozen buildings have been destroyed by the fire, as more than 3,600 firefighters work to get a handle on the flames. At one point, this crew out of Placerville was so close to the front lines that they were forced to run from the flames with only the shirts on their back. You can see this right here. Take a look. This brave bunch of men operate equipment known as the masticator. These machines chew up trees to reduce fuel, making a fire less likely to jump across a roadway. But weather conditions quickly changed, and these men were put in the path of unrelenting flames.
Over our CAL FIRE radios, it came up that watch the smoke, and then it was, hey, get out of there now, pull your crews now.
When we were down on that dozer line down there, that fire came up so quick with all of those masticators. The masticators don't move very fast, so we ended up actually just leaving the masticators, jumping out and running to the nearest truck, jumping in and trying to get out of this canyon.
I don't think a lot of people understand how quickly fire conditions can change, especially for seasoned firefighters. But once those firefighters were safe, the crew returned to their containment lines to see if they held up, and they did. Firefighters credit these operators for helping stop the flames from attacking Forest Hill. So that's definitely good news, but a scary situation for sure.
Yeah, very terrifying. Thank goodness they all got out. Your time now is 5:35. Even though crews are courageously battling on the front lines of this fire, some areas and buildings have suffered severe damages. You can see broken glass and metal that's melted down and solidified. These are just some of the cars, homes, and other buildings now left charred and gutted by the flames. Things, though, could have been worse, as many homes and businesses in the community were saved thanks to the massive firefight.
They did a phenomenal job with saving. I mean, not a single, this fire was a freight train. You can see how it was what we call a dirty burn right here. It didn't burn everything, so it kind of skunked around. And that's because of all these retardant drops.
Fire officials say aircraft dropped over 200,000 gallons of fire retardant in the area of Forest Hill, saving multiple properties.
As the mosquito fire rages on, fire chiefs from across the state are in Sacramento to share ways to fight ongoing wildfires. And while they say the state has dealt with dry conditions before, hotter and drier weather has been stoking these fires. Experts say climate change is largely to blame, and fuel, such as dead trees, result in more explosive fires. Those flames create their own ecosystems.
That is happening at scale within the forest, and the more that happens with an ignition source, with the wind patterns that we're seeing, creates a situation for larger scale fires.
The nonprofit Climate Wildfire Institute is working on connecting the public and private sector, universities, and tribal communities to accelerate the response to wildfires. Brian Finnessy, chief of the Orange County Fire Authority, points to new government plans to centralize things like maps, satellite images, and weather data.
Wildfire is probably the biggest threat to life and property in the state of California and throughout the West. And it's going to take all of us to really get in front of it and address it.
Finnessy adds it is important to get ahead of these fires through risk reduction instead of trying to put the flames out when those fires break out.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.